Hello everyone, we're going to talk about breakup patterns today. So a breakup pattern is basically a reversal pattern. This is what I mean by breakup block is used to frame a reversal. It has to form a high, a low, a higher high, and then a lower low. So in summary, it forms a high, comes to break that high that it formed. But then before that, it has to form a low. So it forms a high, creates a low, comes to break or sweep the previous high is created, and then come back to sweep the previous low. And we are going to be taking our entries on the retest of that previous low. That's if we are in an uptrend and we're anticipating a sell. But if it's the other way around, if we're in a downtrend and we're expecting a reversal, we have to wait for it to create a low, come and create a high, and then after that high is created, creates a lower low or sweeps that previous low, and then goes up to sweep the previous high is created, this high, and wait for a retest and enter a position on that retest. So enter a buy on this retest. Simple as that. So basically, for a breakup pattern to be formed, we need a high, a low, a higher high, and a lower low. In the other scenario, to be the other way around, a low, a high, lower low, and then a higher high, basically. So let's hop in the charts and see some examples. Before you use a breakup pattern, you don't just use it because it's a reversal and use it anyhow. No, we use it in points of interest. When I say points of interest, places that we expect price to reverse, places that have the higher probability of price reversing. And these points can be either fair value gaps or OTs. So OT basically means optimal trade entry. If you want to know more about OT, there'll be a video up there. Can't tap on anything. Get a full understanding of OTs. So fair value gap basically, and also same of a fair value gap also. So this is a fair value gap here. We're on a 5 minutes to go chart, by the way. This is a fair value gap here, right? So first thing to notice is we're in an uptrend, as you can see clearly, creating higher highs, lower lows, higher highs, lower lows, higher highs, lower lows. So it's created a high, a low, it broke that high. So we're expecting it to somewhere create a low and then create another high, right? Good. But then where will it create a low? That's the 10. Or where will it start reversing? So you have a fair value gap. Fair value gap is basically a point of interest where we are interested in looking for a reversal. So there are two ways: either the fair value gap or use an OT. So I prefer the OT because it's more precise for me. So you can also use both. So if I draw my OT is drawn from the swing low to the swing high. So you realize that the fair value gap and the OT are intersecting, right? So you can use the fair value gap as an extra confluence. So fair value gap and the OT. So this is the OT between this and that. Between 0.68 and 0.97 is the OT. So if you watch closely, you realize that OT and the fair value gap are intersecting. So now this is just giving us a stronger confluence. In other words, more reasons why we should pay attention to that zone, this zone. So now that we found a point of interest, what do we do next? Let me clear this. So now, either I use a fair value gap or OT, is basically the same principles. So let me just clear the fair value because I don't use that. I use OT, but then it's still the same thing. You can use the same thing. So I move to the lower time frame. Now, once on the lower time frame, we will have to look out for the breakup pattern as I described it earlier. So this one, we are in a downtrend, as you can see here, and then it's reversed there. But then how do you know that it's about to reverse? That's why you need to identify the breakup pattern. And note, the breakup pattern should be identified in the OT, or at least it should touch the OT, because if it's anywhere out of the OT, it's probably a fake out. You understand with practice. As you can see here, it sold, created a low here. The market's out for easy identification. So created a low, then went ahead to create a high. Market's out, and then came back to sweep that previous low is created. It's create a new low. This is a new low right here. Mark down also. Create a new low. as I said earlier, we expect that for a breakup pattern to be formed, we expect that a low should be created, a high, and then a lower low. After the sweep of this to be created, after lower low is created, we're expecting that that previous high that I created should be swept completely or broken through. As you can see that this candlestick, this huge candlestick, did that perfectly. It broke through and closed above this high. So once that happens, we come and set our buy limit, because we're expecting a buy, obviously. Our buy limit as soon as that candle closes. So as you can see clearly, set stop loss. My stop loss is usually 30 pips, then my TP is usually 100 pips. Our TP was hit nicely. Very perfect trade. So you can literally do this every single day. Let's hop into another example. Sydney session was broken. Sydney session high was broken, which indicates that we're in an uptrend. By just watching, see that it's created a high, a low, it created equal highs, created another low, created a higher high. It basically broke these previous highs, created a low, went ahead to create another high. So obviously we're in an uptrend. You can see that if you like to cancel your trend lines, if that's what you use to find your trend, you can use trend lines also. You can see that we're in an uptrend. So I don't use trend lines, but for those out there who use it. So now after price has broken the previous high or the session Sydney high, I'm going to look out for my point of interest. So there are two ways to do this: either using a fair value gap or using an OT. I use the OT, so come and take my Fib to Fib retracement. So from the most recent low, swing low, so the swing high right here. Then map out the OT. It should be somewhere here. Map out this OTE and label it. If you want extra confluences, or let's say you don't like the OT, you want to use fair value gaps. Basically, you can, if you look closely, you see that there's a fair value gap here. You can use both of them as confluences. I prefer the OT. For the fair value gap, sometimes it doesn't really okay. So you can see a fair value gap here, intersecting the OT. So perfect. So now let's move down a notch to our 1 minute time frame. So it's in a downtrend, then created a low here. After this low was created, it's created a high right here. So created a low, created a low, created a high, came to sweep that previous low, created a new low. So this is a new low right here, and broke the previous highs created, right? So once the candle closes, what do? We enter buy position on that previous high, and then we set our parameters, our stop loss and TPs. My stop loss is always 30 pips, as I said earlier. My TP is 100, so no matter what, if my trade hits TP, that means the trade will be 1:3 RR, which is not bad. It's actually very good. But you can use whatever suits you or your strategy. But for me, that's what works for me. I'm okay. I'm content with it. So yeah. So that's all for today. See you guys in the next one.